Hey everyone, it's Brian Porter. Welcome to our Tone Tips video series. Now my goal with this series is to demystify and simplify some of the guitar repair topics, some of the things that you can do to work on your own guitars, maybe save a little bit of money, maybe just learn in the process. This is all stuff that we have learned over the years and we're happy to share this information. So today we're going to be talking about adjusting your truss rod. Now this might be very simple for those who normally do truss rod adjustments. Some people are scared to touch their truss rod. So I'm going to do a very quick overview of adjusting your truss rod, how to do it, what it does, and some helpful tools that you might want to consider adding to your tool chest or just your workbench or your closet or your guitar case, wherever you put your tools. A couple tools to help you know exactly what that truss rod adjustment is doing, because we don't want to adjust it and not know how it's going to help us or potentially hurt us. So let's do a quick overview of truss rod adjustments. So for today's video, I'm not going to go crazy into depth, but I want to show you a couple things, maybe to relieve some of your fears or hesitations in adjusting the truss rod. If you've done a lot of truss rod adjustments, you know how that goes. This video is not for you, so you can move on, but hopefully this will be helpful for those who have questions about it. Please leave questions, comments below, and we can help you along this journey. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how you can utilize a couple of tools to help you understand the truss rod adjustment a little bit better. And this is something you can experiment with. You don't have to worry too much about it. You can kind of do some quick adjustments, see how it affects your setup, and go back and forth, move it back to where it was. But you want to know where it's going and how much your adjustments are taking into effect. So first thing we're going to be using is this very cool truss rod wrench set from Music Nomad. You don't need a full set unless you have a bunch of different guitars. Typically your guitar is going to come with a truss rod wrench. So if you've got maybe 2 or 3 guitars, they probably all have a wrench with them. This is helpful for our shop here because we see all sorts of types of guitars, all sorts of types of truss rods. This has everything from, your Fender style to Gibson style. It's got, the blades for the old style Fenders with the blade screw adjustment. It's even got the spoke wheel adjust that we use on our own guitars. So the other thing you're going to want to consider getting, because this is the best indicator, this is a modernized version. If you've seen our other video of using a notch straight edge, same difference. This one from Music Nomad is very cool. You can see it's triangular shaped. It allows you to use different scale lengths depending on where you set it. So you can see it's got notches here for the different frets. You're going to lay this on the fretboard. The important part is putting this directly on the fretboard allows you to see when you adjust that truss rod what it's actually doing to the neck itself, not to the frets. So we want to know where the neck's at when adjusting your truss rod. That's typically going to be helpful in setting up relief for the guitar. All right, so let's jump over to the bench. Let me show you just a quick run through of how to adjust your truss rod and why you might want to consider adjusting it for certain situations. Let's go over to the bench. All right, over here at the bench we have a Fender Strat. This has the headstock adjust for the truss rod here. So we would go through and we would find our appropriate wrench. Sometimes you lose the wrench, or sometimes maybe you buy a used guitar that doesn't come with it. The best way to think about this, first I'm going to go through which way to adjust it, which way to turn it to get what you want. This is the most simple way to think about this when adjusting your truss rod. So once you have your wrench in here, if you turn it to the right, that's going to raise the center of the neck. So I think about it as right is raise and left is lower, if you want to think it that way. So I'll talk about that and show you from another angle here in a second. But this one, for an example, is the headstock adjust. So if you're thinking to the right, you're looking down at the headstock and you're going to adjust towards the bass side of the strings for a truss rod like this. Let's take a look at a heel adjust and how you would do that. All right, so over here we've got a heel adjust. This is a spoke wheel truss rod. A lot of vintage guitars will have a heel adjust truss rod. You may even have to take the neck off, which is an extra kind of a pain to do that, but you might have to depending on what you're going for. So same difference here. To the right is going to be raising the center of the neck. To the left is going to be lowering the center of the neck. You can think about it just as you're creating up bow or back bow, which you may have heard of in descriptions. So in this case, you would put, this is a spoke wheel, so we would put this tool here which is our just kind of a nice little rod, down into the wheel, and then turn it towards the right to raise the center of the neck or lower it, depending on what you want. Now there's different factory settings for neck relief and action, and we're not going to cover that specifically in this video. This is just more, again, how to adjust it and how you might want to approach it. But really think about, the goal is demystifying that. If you're going to the right, it's going to raise the middle of the neck. If you're going to the left, it's going to lower. So keep that in mind, and that is orientation. So here we are, heel adjust going to the right. If it was the neck adjust, we would be coming this way and turning right from the top of the neck. So keep that in mind, depending on where your truss rod adjustment is located, that's going to affect which way you turn it. Now everything's going to be micro adjustments, but I will show you a little bit of this not straight edge and how to kind of see where you have relief and maybe where you might want to change it. So let's go from another angle and we'll talk about that. All right, taking a look at the side from the strat here, we want to look at that neck relief, and we really want to know exactly how much relief is in the neck. And so we're going to use the not straight edge as well. Typically, you're going to want to look from about the 7th fret to the 9th fret, kind of in the center of the neck as much as you can. That's where you're going to want to see that relief. And you can look online for factory relief settings. They have relief gauges where you can slide them in there and set them to a factory spec. I would just encourage you to try it and maybe ignore factory specs a little bit and try to experiment with finding what might work the best for you. All right, so we're going to come over here with our not straight edge, and this is the 25.5 scale length. So you can see right there, I'm going to find a spot. And one thing to mention is we really want to make sure that you have your strings to tension and tuned up perfectly, because that's going to create the pull from the strings on the neck and actually see where your relief is truly. You can use these not straight edges for leveling frets on a unstrung up neck. But if you can see here on the camera, you can see I set down this not straight edge, and you can see a little bit of relief there. Hopefully that shows up on the camera. Just a little bit of air, a little bit of light right under the fret. You can see just above the dot there. So that tells me we have that amount of relief, and you can again get a set of feeler gauges and measure that. But it looks like a pretty standard amount of relief. So if I want that gap to be bigger, I would turn the truss rod to the left. If I want my neck to be straighter, if I want it to be as low as possible, I would turn that to the right to erase that gap. So that's going to be a quick primer on how you adjust that. And really it's about preference. You may find if you get the neck too straight, it might be fretting out up higher on the neck. If you have too much relief, maybe it might feel a little sloppy, or it might be just too high of action, because keep in mind as you drop down in here, you're going to be creating more gap in this space here. Now again, we're not going to talk through about getting the nut height and the saddle height correct, but this is just simply how to adjust and why you might want to consider having these tools to really tell you the true story of that. So just one more quick note, when you're laying down your not straight edge, you want to make sure, obviously this one's cool as I mentioned before because it has the different scale lengths, but you want to make sure that you're in the center of the neck. So typically I'm going to go right between the D and the G, kind of as center as I can, so I can really see what's happening. This tool can also reveal if you have a warped neck. Maybe you're going to set it down here and you're seeing that it's touching on one side and not touching on another, even though the neck's supposed to be straight. That's always a bummer when you find that out, but this is an invaluable tool as you look to adjust your truss rod. If you want to get your guitar maybe set up for slide, you can consider moving that truss rod to the left and dropping the relief a little bit, and then that way you have a little bit more playability for a slide type guitar. But I encourage you again to experiment with this. All right, so hopefully that was a helpful primer on adjusting your truss rod. Again, don't be scared to do it. Don't go too far with it. I think that's probably my only disclaimer. Don't crank on it too far, but hopefully I explained how you can very carefully and simply look at it and see how it affects your setup. You may have guitars that need to have more relief added. You may have guitars that you want dead straight, you want a little bit more flat. So always do that, truss rod adjustments in conjunction with your saddle height and your setup as well. Those are all part of the same element. Today's video is just mostly focusing on how to adjust the truss rod, but keep in mind your saddle height, your string action height, all that stuff, it factors into when you adjust that truss rod. So thanks for watching. Check us out at porterpickups.com. You can also look around our channel down below if you are unfamiliar with what we do. We make electric guitars and electric guitar pickups, and we love doing these tech videos, and hopefully this was helpful for you. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.